The sun had barely risen when a scream shattered the quiet calm of Maplewood Lane. A small pink bicycle lay twisted on the asphalt. Its training wheels bent, and beside it, little Amara, just 5 years old, motionless, her tiny hands still clutching the doll she'd been carrying moments earlier. Neighbors rushed out, gasping, their slippers slapping the pavement. And standing above her, red-faced and trembling with rage, was Harold Finn, the HOA president, clutching a garden rake like a weapon, shouting words no child should ever hear. "Stay off my property," he bellowed. But Amara wasn't moving. "Before I tell you what happened next, tell me in the comments where you rewatching from. I love knowing who's listening." Her mother, Tiana Brooks, came running out barefoot, her robe fluttering behind her like a torn flag. She dropped to her knees beside her daughter, sobbing, trying to wake her. "Baby, please, Mara, open your eyes," she cried. Her hands shook as she looked up at Harold, who just sneered, muttering something about rules and people like you. The ambulance siren echoed through the neighborhood moments later. But the damage was already done, not just to Amara, but to the entire community. Because this time, everyone had seen. Harold Finn wasn't just any man. He'd been HOA president for 15 years, the self-appointed gatekeeper of the perfect suburban dream. And in his mind, Tiana and her daughter didn't belong. Neighbors whispered that Harold had been trying to drive them out for months. Petty violations. Fines for unauthorized toys in the driveway. Complaints about noise when Amara laughed in her own yard. But that morning, something inside him snapped. When the police arrived, he stood on his porch, calm, arms folded, the picture of arrogance. "She ran into my yard," he said flatly. "I was just defending my property," but Tiana saw the bruises. The rake had struck her daughter's head. At the hospital, sterile lights hummed as Tiana sat beside Amara's bed, her tiny frame covered in wires and machines. The doctor said the words no mother should hear: "She's in a coma." And while Tiana wept quietly, Harold went home to his spotless lawn and manicured hedges. Convinced he'd done nothing wrong, he even filed a complaint against her. For days, the community was silent. Some were too afraid to speak against him. Others didn't want to get involved, but one person did. Marcus Bennett, a retired firefighter who lived 2 doors down, couldn't sleep. He'd seen it all from his window that morning. Snow Harold had powerful friends. Marcus had something else, a conscience that wouldn't let him rest. He began collecting evidence: doorbell camera footage, witness statements, every HOA email Harold had sent dripping with bias and coded hostility. Each word revealed a man who hid his cruelty behind rules and regulations. But Marcus wasn't alone. Soon, other neighbors joined him. They started meeting quietly at night in backyards, sharing stories. Harold had bullied them all. Different families, different reasons. But now they had a common cause: justice for Amara. The day the police came back to Maplewood, the air felt heavy with anticipation. Harold was trimming his hedges again when the squad cars pulled up. He smirked, thinking it was another complaint he could brush off. When the officers stepped out, their expressions were firm, their voices sharp. "Harold Finn, you're under arrest for aggravated assault." For the first time, he looked uncertain. "What? This is ridiculous. I was protecting my property." But as they cuffed him, Marcus stepped forward, holding a folder thick with printed emails and video clips. "Protecting property doesn't mean attacking children," he said quietly. The neighborhood watched in silence as Harold was led away. The man who had once ruled the block now couldn't even meet their eyes. In the weeks that followed, the once divided community came together. Neighbors who had never spoken began sharing meals, helping Tiana with groceries, sending cards for Amara. Flowers bloomed on every doorstep. Pink tulips, Amara's favorite. Then one morning, something miraculous happened. Tiana had been reading softly beside her daughter's bed when she felt a twitch, a small movement in Amara's fingers. She froze, tears filling her eyes as the little girl's lips parted. "Mommy." The nurses came rushing in, and soon the room filled with laughter and cries of joy. The coma had broken. Word spread fast. By sunset, the entire neighborhood gathered outside Tiana's house, holding candles and cheering as she carried Amara home, wrapped in a blanket. Marcus was there too, smiling quietly from the crowd. But the story didn't end with Harold's arrest or Amara's awakening. The real change came later in the hearts of those who had once stayed silent. They voted to dissolve the old HOA board. Marcus became the new president and made it his mission to rebuild what Harold had broken trust. Under the new rules, kindness replaced control. Playgrounds were opened, gardens flourished, and every family, regardless of color, class, or creed, was welcome. One evening, months later, as Amara rode her bike down the street again, this time with a shiny new helmet and a chorus of neighbors cheering her on, Tiana looked up at the sky and whispered, "We're home." Because kindness doesn't vanish, it waits, and it finds its way back. And that's exactly what happened on Maplewood Lane. So what did you feel when you heard Amara's story? Would your neighborhood stand up like Marcus did, or stay silent? Tell me in the comments, and if this story moved you, make sure to subscribe to Cinematic Whispers, where every story reminds us that justice, no matter how long it takes, always finds its voice.